Welcome to MissouriNet.com. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Austin Kim from KMIZ-TV out of Columbia. We are going to talk Mizzou and Texas A&M football and maybe get a little I know Austin's a big basketball guy, too. We'll talk about Mizzou basketball with the Kim Anderson era getting ready to tip off on Friday. Austin, first, Mizzou and A&M. Are you surprised that A&M is going with Kyle Allen, the freshman, instead of Kenny Hill starting at quarterback?
I think if you're going to play the hot hand, which is what it appears Kevin Sumlin's going to do, I feel like the choice is to go with Kyle Allen. I think Kenny Hill has shown some ups and downs. I think everyone talks about his big game against South Carolina to open up the season. All of a sudden, he kind of gets in limbo, then he finds himself in trouble, gets the 2-game suspension. Kyle Allen by no means was phenomenal in his first start against Louisiana Monroe. I think he had 100-something yards and maybe threw a couple of touchdowns, but then he really broke out with 4 touchdowns against Auburn, and that's certainly a feat. When you're able to not only just have a phenomenal game, but a phenomenal game at Jordan Hare, one of the great SEC environments out there against the number 3 team of the nation, I think you give yourself a statement. And you know what? Kevin Sumlin isn't afraid to play a freshman quarterback. I think that turned out pretty well for him and the young quarterbacks in A&M's history. So I think this is going to be a great test for MU. I think, I know Gary Pinkel always says they prepare for 2 quarterbacks, but that's especially going to be true with the way they're going to have to play against Kenny Hill and Kyle Allen. I think having the preparation of facing like a team like Florida, who had Jeff Driscoll and Treon Harris, I think that's going to help this team in terms of soaking up the right amount of information and not getting too overwhelmed and playing rather than just trying to think everything through when you're facing these 2 different quarterbacks.
I think this is a great move for Missouri because I look at the stats, and Kenny Hill leads the SEC in total offense, 350 yards a game, passing per game, 331. I think Auburn came in not ready to play and not expecting Kyle Allen to play the way he did, because once they settled down, he had 4 touchdown passes on their first 5 possessions. Once the game settled down, Auburn, by all intent and purposes, should have won the game. They handed the game away twice in the final minutes of that game. I think that he's going to crumble under Mizzou's defensive pressure. I think their defense is just too good.
Well, here's something you have to keep in mind, too, is they have to make a shuffle on that offensive line. I think their right tackle is out, so they have to make a shuffle. And if you're an offensive lineman, as Missouri knows, when they've had to make the switch early in the season with Anthony Gotti being out, boy, I mean, it can wreak havoc when you're facing a defensive line like with Marcus Golden and Shane Ray, who's kind of Shane Ray has become the talk of the nation. It seems like his stock keeps getting higher and higher as the season goes on. That being said, I think this defensive line is going to be critical in this game from Missouri, because we've been talking about the secondary a little bit because of this defensive line being able to get pressure and everyone worrying about them and not maybe taking the Mizzou secondary so seriously. That being said, the defensive line credits the secondary for doing such a good job, but that's all aside. Braylon Webb isn't going to play in the first half, and then Arion Penton, Mizzou's top corner, he's out. So now the pressure is on John Gibson, who's a taller cornerback who might do well against the Aggie receivers in the end zone. But I'm still not sold on them in coverage. Him and Kenyon Dennis and Deron Singleton. And I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure on this Mizzou secondary, and I think the Mizzou defensive line, you hate to ask for more, but they're going to have to do more and really just tear this offensive line apart of Texas A&M to really put the pressure on Kyle Allen and force them to make a change and possibly go to Kenny Hill.
We're talking with Austin Kim from KMIZ-TV out of Columbia. All right, let's switch to the offensive side of the ball. Matty Mock. Before we get to, let's touch on this first. Matty Mock gets back Darius White. The receiving core should be back and settled. How much does this help Matty in this game?
I think it's very important because, say what you will about Darius White, he was the big play threat for Matty Mock early on in the season. When you take a look at the Toledo game, and now the first 2 touchdowns of the season were all long balls to Darius White. There's clearly a comfort level between Mock and White. And you saw the offense kind of really start to struggle in that South Carolina game when both Hunt and White were out. And that clearly threw Matty off. So now the fact that he's going to have all of his three receivers back, his senior receivers back, he's not going to have to count on guys like Wesley Leftwich or Lawrence Lee to really, step up, because they clearly showed that they were not ready yet. Maybe they will down the line, but with all the drops that they've had, including Sean Culkin, a lot of these guys are clearly not ready for the bright lights. So I think having Darius White is something that it's going to be very helpful to Matty Mock. And I think we see an improvement out of Matty Mock. He didn't look great against Kentucky in the second half. In the first half, he was 13 of 18. I think we're not gonna see Matty Mock throw 5 touchdowns, or maybe they will for Tiger fans' sake, but I don't think Matty Mock's gonna throw for 5 touchdowns. But I think he's gonna look a lot more comfortable against Texas A&M.
You talked about Shane Ray. They have Myles Garrett, who is right behind Ray in terms of sacks in leading the SEC. I think he's got 11, and Ray has 12. They may be tied, but I may be off my numbers there a little bit. Mizzou's offensive line has struggled a little bit. Does that concern you at all, that they'll be able to put some pressure on Mock and maybe force him to make some mistakes?
I think the offensive line has actually looked better these last few games. I think the South Carolina and Georgia games were just atrocious for the offensive line. And I think you started to see a little improvement. They're not world beaters by any means. They're not pancaking guys left and right, and you're not going to do that against a guy like Myles Garrett, who actually does have 11 sacks. Myles Garrett was someone that I know everyone kind of pays attention to, and he's just a freshman. I think he actually broke the record for sacks by a freshman, and that was held by Jadeveon Clowney, and we all know how he turned out. So I think this offensive line, the pressure is going to be on them, because that's obviously the reason why Mock does so well aside from his wide receivers, is he gets good protection. And the other thing, too, is why keep all this pressure on Mock? I think they need to run block a little bit better for Russell Hansbrough and Marcus Murphy. Let them get in down the middle, running up the gut a little bit, especially Russell. I think when they're able to do that, that takes a lot of pressure off Mock. It keeps their defense, Texas A&M's defense, on the field, and allows that Mizzou defense to get rested, because when that defense is rested for MU, they are incredible.
They being Texas A&M, last in interceptions. In terms of run defense, they're near the bottom, so their defense not all that opportunistic. All right, 2 yes or no questions. Does Mizzou beat Texas A&M this week?
Well, you're putting me on the spot now. I'm going to say yes, because my word says all. I mean, if it's yes, it's yes.
All right, that's good. That's what I think too. I think they're all right. Now, wait, I was going to spill the beans here, but second question: does Missouri play in the SEC championship game?
No, I think they're still good for one more loss.
And so then you're saying that Georgia beats Auburn?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Auburn, I think just something tells me about Auburn. The way they looked against, I think they either needed some sort of come to Jesus moment, or I think they are in deep trouble. I think Georgia, with the way they run, where they're going to get Todd Gurley back, I think that's a huge, huge thing for Georgia. This is a team that they understand what's at stake. I'm not going to question a team like Georgia and a program like Georgia.
All right, we'll see. Now, listen, I think Malzahn will have those guys ready to play. I don't think they lay 2 eggs in a row in a week, so that's what I'm banking on. And I think Missouri goes to the SEC championship game. So we got different opinions. That's good, though. That's what people want to see. They don't want us agreeing on the same stuff. So, all right, let's talk basketball real quick, Austin, before we leave. Mizzou takes on the Kangaroos of UMKC on Friday. You're excited. What are your expectations for Mizzou basketball?
Well, I think it's just a matter of, seeing if all the talk is backed up. I think defensively, I think it's going to if Kim Anderson has spent so much time on defense, let's see it. I think we're starting to see the effort there, glue guys like D'Angelo Allen diving for the ball, and even, some of those, guards are starting to do that too. Schamberger, even Wes Clark a little bit. That's the stuff you like to see, and I think that's stuff that endears this team to Mizzou fans. That being said, we have to see if they're able to shut down a guy like Martez Harrison. By no means is Mizzou easing into its schedule. Martez Harrison is a very dangerous scorer. He was a top 10 scorer in the NCAA as a freshman last year. I mean, he's able to put up numbers. So I think this is going to be a big test for Mizzou, and especially 3 games in 6 days. we're going to test the stamina of these young guys and see if they're able to soak in all this information, somehow rest up and get ready for the next game and soak in another scouting report. It's a young team. We'll see what happens with them this weekend.
Big picture, I'm not concerned about how many wins they get. I just want to see the effort. And if I see the effort and I see, like you mentioned, the diving and the playing defense and playing hard, I don't care if they win 5 games. But if I see the effort and see that they're at least moving in the right direction, if they do that, they're going to get more than 5 wins, I'm saying. But I just want to see the effort. I'm not worried about the end result. I just want to see that they're buying into Kim Anderson's philosophy and his program. And when they do that, I think Mizzou fans can be excited regardless of what the wins and losses say this season.
Well, effort and offense. They need to spend a little bit more time on offense because the defense thing is great. And Kim Anderson knows his team better than we do because he's there every day. But offensively, they need to learn how to run some plays and really trust the system. And like Kim said, to not play so robotic and play so stiff because there's a lot of good potential in this team between Naaman Wright and Techie Gill Caesar, and if he can get his skill up a little bit, Jakeenan Gant, there's ways for this team to score, but they have to trust the system and have to understand each other a lot better, especially when they have the ball.
I think you're going to see this team go from here to some point up here. I think they're going to get better as the season goes on. I'm excited about it. I thought Anderson was the right move, and we'll see what happens through the season. There might be some growing pains, but I think exciting times ahead for Mizzou basketball. Austin Kim from KMIZ-TV out of Columbia, thanks for joining us. We'll have you on. Well, we're going to have to debate because we're on separate ends of the spectrum here in terms of what we think Mizzou football is going to do. So we'll catch up with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Bill.
All right. Thank you, and thanks for watching us at MissouriNet.com.